Wealthy banker gave poor boy his worst job, but regretted it like never before. Richard Thompson. Wells was used to humiliating people. As the director of the largest bank in Denver, he had the power to make or break lives with a simple nod of his head. That Tuesday morning, he had no idea a 12-year-old boy would change his existence forever. It all began when the boy appeared at the bank's door selling mint candies. Richard was leaving a frustrating meeting with investors when he saw the boy standing there wearing a faded t-shirt and worn-out sneakers, holding a small cardboard box. "What are you doing here, kid?" Richard asked sharply, adjusting his navy blue tie. The boy lifted his brown eyes, showing no fear. "Selling candies, sir, just $2 a pack. They're really sweet." Richard laughed loudly, drawing the attention of employees passing through the bank's entrance. His laughter echoed through the polished marble lobby, mixing with the sound of hurried customers' footsteps. "Do you know who I am?" Richard crossed his arms, amused by the situation. "No, sir. But if you'd like to buy—" "I own this bank, and you're bothering my clients." The boy looked around. It was only 7 in the morning, and the crowd was still small. Only a few employees were arriving for another workday. "Sorry, sir. I didn't know I was in the way." A malicious idea formed in Richard's mind. His fellow executives always said he was very creative when he wanted to amuse himself at others' expense. "What's your name, boy?" "Tyler, sir. Tyler Williams." "Tyler." Richard savored the name like someone planning mischief. "How about we make a deal?" The boy tilted his head, curious. "I need someone for a job here at the bank. It's hard, dirty work, but it pays $40 a week. You in?" Tyler's eyes lit up. $40 meant a lot to him. "What kind of job, sir?" "Cleaning the basement, the bathrooms, the file rooms, the storage areas, places no one wants to clean." Richard smirked. "But it's honest work." Tyler didn't hesitate for a second. "I'll take it, sir. When can I start?" The quick response surprised Richard. He expected the boy to refuse or at least hesitate. "Today, at 5 in the afternoon when the bank closes. Ask for Mrs. Margaret at the reception desk. She'll explain everything." "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Tyler quickly stuffed his candies into his torn backpack and ran off, as if afraid Richard might change his mind. Richard walked into the bank feeling extremely pleased with himself. He'd gotten an employee practically for free to do the job no one wanted, and he'd had fun in the process. What he didn't know was that Tyler ran straight to City Memorial Hospital, where his grandmother Dorothy had been admitted 3 weeks earlier. The 72-year-old woman had fallen at home and needed urgent physical therapy, but Medicaid was overwhelmed, and the waiting list was long. "Grandma, I got a job," Tyler whispered, approaching the simple bed where the elderly woman lay. Dorothy opened her eyes slowly. Her thin face was pale, but she managed to smile when she saw her grandson. "What job, my boy?" "At the bank on Main Street. I'll make $40 a week cleaning some places there." His grandmother sighed, worried. "Tyler, you're still a child. You should be studying, playing—" "Grandma, you need private therapy. The doctor said it'll take months with Medicaid. We don't have that kind of time." Dorothy tried to move in bed but groaned in pain. Her right leg was still weak after the fall. "I don't want you suffering because of me, my boy." "It's not suffering, Grandma. It's love. You raised me after my parents had the accident. Now it's my turn to take care of you." Tears welled up in the elderly woman's eyes. Tyler was all she had in the world, and vice versa. They lived in a small room at the back of a boarding house, surviving on her pension and the money he made selling candies on the street. At 5 in the afternoon, Tyler was back at the bank. Mrs. Margaret, a short woman with graying hair, greeted him at the reception. "You must be Tyler. Mr. Thompson told me about you." "Yes, ma'am. I'm here for work." Margaret looked him up and down. Something felt off about this situation. In 20 years working at the bank, she had never seen Richard Thompson hire a child to work, especially under the conditions he had described. "Come with me, son. I'll show you where you'll be working." She led him down a side hallway to a staircase descending into the bank's basement. The place was dimly lit and smelled strongly of dampness. Tyler carefully descended the concrete steps, gripping the rusty handrail. "Down here are the old archives, some storage rooms, and 3 employee bathrooms," Margaret explained, flicking on the fluorescent lights that flickered before steadying. Your job will be to keep everything clean. The cleaning supplies are in this cabinet." Tyler looked around. The place was truly depressing. The walls were painted a faded green, water stains marked the ceiling, and the tiled floor was grimy. "Don't be afraid to ask if you need anything," Margaret said, her voice softening. "And Tyler, if anyone treats you badly here, you come find me, okay?" The boy nodded, grateful for the woman's kindness. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Tyler started working immediately. He grabbed the rags, detergent, and broom and headed to the first bathroom. The place was filthy, toilet paper on the floor, sinks caked with dried soap. As he cleaned, he thought about his grandmother. $40 a week wasn't much, but it was a start. If he could save for a few months, maybe he could pay for at least a few private physical therapy sessions. It was while scrubbing the toilet that he noticed something strange. There were crumpled papers in the trash, but they weren't ordinary papers. They had the bank's logo and looked like important documents. Tyler stopped cleaning and picked up a few. "Confidential" was stamped in red letters at the top of the first page. He couldn't understand everything written, but he recognized some names of elderly people from his neighborhood. Mrs. Jenkins, who sold pastries at the market. Mr. Wilson, who fixed shoes on the corner. Mrs. Thompson, who taught embroidery to the girls in the community. What were documents about his neighbors doing in the bank's trash? Tyler folded the papers and tucked them into his backpack. Maybe someone could explain what they were about. By the time he finished cleaning all 3 bathrooms, it was past 8 at night. Margaret had waited for him to finish so she could lock up. "How was your first day?" she asked, as they climbed the stairs together. "It was good, Mrs. Margaret. I got everything nice and clean." "That's great. Will you be back at the same time tomorrow?" "Yes, ma'am." Tyler left the bank carrying his backpack, feeling a mix of pride and exhaustion. His first day had been tough, but he'd done it. On the way home, he stopped by City Memorial Hospital to visit his grandmother quickly. "How was it, my boy?" Dorothy asked when she saw him. "It went well, Grandma. The people there are nice, and I found some strange papers in the trash." "What papers?" Tyler showed the documents to his grandmother. Dorothy put on her reading glasses and carefully examined the papers. "Tyler, this is very serious," she said after a few minutes. "Why, Grandma?" "These are bank statements, and they show transactions that weren't authorized by the account holders." Tyler didn't fully understand, but he saw the worried expression on his grandmother's face. "Is that bad?" "It's illegal, my boy. Someone is tampering with these people's money without them knowing." "What should I do with this?" Dorothy thought for a moment. "Keep these papers hidden very well, and keep an eye out if you find more. Someone might be doing something wrong at that bank." Tyler nodded and stored the documents in an old folder his grandmother had on the hospital nightstand. The next day, he returned to the bank promptly at 5 in the afternoon. Richard Thompson was at the reception desk, talking to some important clients when he saw the boy walk in. "Well, look who's here," he said loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "Our new janitor." The clients laughed, and Tyler felt his face turn red with embarrassment, but he didn't say anything. He needed that job. He went down to the basement and started his work. In the files, he found more papers scattered on the floor. They looked like they had fallen out of one of the document boxes. Again, they were bank statements from people he knew in the neighborhood. Tyler kept them with the others. Over the next week, the same thing kept happening. Every day, he found more suspicious documents thrown in the trash or scattered across the basement floor. All of them showed strange transactions in elderly people's accounts. Then, on Friday, everything changed. Tyler was cleaning a storage room when he heard footsteps on the stairs. No one was supposed to be down there at that time. Quickly, he hid behind a tall shelf of files. 2 male voices came down talking. "Did you transfer the money from Mrs. Eleanor's account yet?" It was Richard Thompson's voice. "Yes, sir. Another $5,000. She won't even notice. They're simple people. They don't understand bank statements," another man replied. "Perfect. And Mr. Johnson?" "That one was trickier. He always checks his account. but I managed to explain it as a special maintenance fee. Tyler's heart raced. They were talking about stealing money from elderly clients. Good, our operation is working perfectly. As long as these old folks don't understand digital banking, we'll keep taking small amounts. They'll just think it's a service charge. Richard chuckled softly. It's brilliant, Dr. Thompson. And if anyone complains too much, we can always say it was a system error. Exactly. Stick to the list I gave you. But be careful not to draw attention. Small amounts, always. Tyler listened as the footsteps faded away and stood there, trembling. Now he fully understood what was happening. Richard Thompson was stealing money from elderly people, taking advantage of the fact that they didn't know how to use computers or properly read bank statements. When he came out of hiding, Tyler saw they had left an open folder on a table. Inside was a list of names and amounts, all elderly people from his neighborhood and nearby areas. Mrs. Jenkins, $200 monthly. Mr. Wilson, $150 monthly. Mrs. Thompson, $300 monthly. Mr. Johnson, $250 monthly. The list had over 50 names. Tyler took pictures of everything with an old cell phone his grandmother had given him. Then he carefully stored all the documents he had collected over the week. He needed to tell someone. But who? If he told his grandmother, she'd be too worried and stressed, which could hurt her recovery. If he told Mrs. Margaret, she might lose her job for helping him. Tyler decided he needed more proof before taking action. Over the following days, he began paying closer attention to everything happening in the basement. He discovered that Richard went down there every Friday after work to handle some specific files. It was on one of those Fridays that Tyler decided to take a risk. He was cleaning a nearby room when he saw Richard heading downstairs with another man. He hid again and managed to overhear the entire conversation. "We need to speed up the process," Richard was saying. "I want you to double the amount withdrawn from each account. But, sir, if we increase it too much, they'll notice." "No, they won't. They're ignorant people who can barely read. And even if they do notice, who's going to believe them over me?" Tyler felt anger rising in his chest. How could Richard talk like that about the people in their neighborhood? They were hard-working, honest folks who had earned their savings through great effort. "By the way," Richard continued, "I want you to add that old woman in the hospital to the list. Dorothy something." Tyler's blood ran cold. "Dorothy Williams?" the other man asked. "That's the one. She has a tiny savings account, but every dollar counts, and a sick old woman in the hospital won't be checking her statements." Tyler had to restrain himself from jumping out of hiding and shouting. They were planning to steal his grandmother's money. When the men left, Tyler had made up his mind he couldn't wait any longer. He needed to act immediately. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. On Saturday morning, Tyler went to visit his grandmother at the hospital earlier than usual. Dorothy was sitting up in bed, looking a little better. "Good morning, Grandma. How are you feeling?" "Better, my boy. I think the hospital's physical therapy is helping, even if it's not much." Tyler took a deep breath. He had to tell her everything. "Grandma, I need to talk to you about something very serious." Dorothy noticed the gravity in her grandson's voice. "What is it, Tyler?" "I found out the owner of the bank where I work is stealing money from elderly clients, and you're on his list." Tyler told her everything he had seen and heard. He showed her photos of the documents and explained how Richard's scheme worked. Dorothy listened silently, her expression growing more serious by the minute. "Tyler, this is very dangerous. You can't confront this man alone." "But Grandma, I can't let him steal your money and our neighbor's money." "I know, my boy, but we need to be smart. People like Richard have a lot of power. If you accuse him without enough proof, he could deny everything and even hurt you." "So what do we do?" Dorothy thought for a few minutes. "Do you know Dr. Sarah? She's a doctor here at the hospital and also a lawyer, a very good and fair woman. I think we can trust her." Tyler recognized Dr. Sarah by sight. She was a woman in her 50s, always very kind to all the patients. "You think she can help us?" "I believe so, but first we need to organize all the evidence carefully. You have to keep working at the bank as usual, without drawing attention, and keep gathering proof. Tyler agreed, but he was worried. What if they touch your account before we can prove everything? We'll keep an eye on it. I'll ask the nurse to help me check my statement on the hospital computer. Over the next week, Tyler continued his work in the basement, but now with a different purpose. Every document he found was carefully photographed and saved. Every conversation he overheard was written down in a notebook. It was on a Wednesday that he made an even more shocking discovery. While organizing some files, he found a folder labeled Operation Golden Years. Inside were detailed spreadsheets showing how much money had been taken from each elderly client over the past 2 years. The total amount was staggering, over $200,000. Tyler quickly photographed everything and put the folder back exactly where he'd found it. That evening, when he went to visit his grandmother, he found her talking with Dr. Sarah. "Tyler, your grandmother told me about the situation," the doctor said. "What you've uncovered is very serious. Can you help us?" Tyler asked. "I can, yes, but we'll need to be very careful. Accusations against influential people like Richard Thompson Wells require solid proof." Tyler showed all the photos and documents he had collected. Dr. Sarah examined everything carefully. "This is enough to open an investigation," she said after a while. "But it would be better if we had some more direct evidence." "What kind of evidence?" "Recordings of conversations, for example, or catching them in the act of manipulating the accounts." Tyler thought for a moment. "I think I can get a recording. They meet in the basement every Friday." "Too dangerous, Tyler," Dorothy interrupted. "If they find out, Grandma, I can't let them keep stealing from people, and if I get caught now, at least we already have this proof." Dr. Sarah looked at the boy with admiration. "Tyler, you're very brave, but your grandmother is right. It's too risky." "Doctor, what happens if we report them with just the evidence we already have?" "They'll probably deny everything, say the documents are fake, that you made up the conversations. Richard Thompson Wells has enough money to hire the best lawyers." Tyler felt a lump in his throat. It all seemed so unfair. "But if I can get a clear recording, that would change things. With a recording, it would be impossible to deny." Tyler made his decision. "Then I'll try." "Tyler, no," Dorothy protested. "Grandma, you always taught me we can't stand by when we see injustice happening. This is my time to put what you taught me into practice." Dr. Sarah sighed. "If you're really set on this, at least let's plan carefully. Do you know anyone who can lend you a small recorder?" Tyler thought. "Mrs. Margaret's son works with electronics. I think he might have something." "Good. But Tyler, at the first sign of danger, you get out of there, understood?" Tyler agreed. The following Friday, Tyler was more nervous than ever. He'd managed to borrow a small digital recorder from Mrs. Margaret's son, who was curious but didn't ask too many questions. He arrived at the bank at his usual time and went down to the basement. He hid the recorder on a shelf in the room where Richard always met with his accomplice. At 6:30 in the evening, he heard footsteps on the stairs. Quickly, he positioned himself in his hiding spot and turned on the recorder remotely from his phone. "So, how are the numbers this week?" It was Richard's voice. "Very good, Dr. Richard. We managed to withdraw another $8,000 in total." "Perfect. And no one complained?" "One lady was suspicious, Mrs. Eleanor, but I explained they were new fees from the central bank. Did she believe it?" "Seems like it. These older folks are so naive." Tyler clenched his fists. How could they talk like that about people who trusted them? "And what about that Dorothy woman?" Richard asked. "I've already started messing with her account. Since she's in the hospital, she's not checking it anyway." "How much have you taken so far?" $500 up to now. I'll keep taking $200 a week." Tyler felt like crying. $500 was a lot of money for them. "Great. Keep it up. Oh, and that cleaning boy. He hasn't noticed anything, has he?" "What boy?" "Tyler, the kid who works down here in the basement." Tyler's heart raced. They were talking about him. "No, sir. He's just a kid, can barely even read." "Good, because if he finds out anything—" "He won't, sir. He's very naive." Tyler wanted to shout that he wasn't naive, that he knew exactly what they were doing, but he held back. The conversation continued for a few more minutes, with Richard giving instructions to speed up the thefts even more. When the men finally left, Tyler waited another 10 minutes before coming out of hiding. His hands were shaking as he grabbed the recorder. He'd done it. He had the proof he needed. He ran to the hospital and found Dr. Sarah still on duty. "I did it," he said, panting. "The recording?" "Yes, they confessed to everything." Dr. Sarah listened to the entire recording with Dorothy. When it finished, her expression was deadly serious. "Tyler, this is pure gold. With this recording, they can't deny a thing." "What do we do now?" "Now we fight. I'll reach out to a district attorney I know. He specializes in financial crimes." "How long will that take?" "A few days to get everything in order. But Tyler, you can't go back to the bank from now on. It's too dangerous." "But how do I explain why I'm not working anymore?" "Say you're sick, or that your grandmother needs you. Anything but the truth." Tyler agreed. Truthfully, he was relieved he wouldn't have to pretend he didn't know anything anymore. On Saturday morning, he called Mrs. Margaret. "Mrs. Margaret, I won't be able to work at the bank anymore." "Why, Tyler, did something happen? My grandmother really needs me. I have to take care of her." Margaret sensed there was more to the story, but didn't press further. "I understand, dear. You're such a good boy. If you need anything, you can come to me." Over the weekend, Dr. Sarah worked tirelessly organizing all the evidence. On Monday morning, she met with DA Michael Roberts. "Sarah, this is very serious," he said after reviewing everything. "We're looking at a fraud scheme that may have harmed hundreds of people. What will you do?" "I'll request a search and seizure at the bank, but I need to act fast before they destroy the evidence." "What about Tyler? Will he be protected?" "I'll take all necessary measures. That boy is a hero." On Tuesday morning, Tyler was at the hospital with his grandmother when they saw a shocking news report on TV. "Special Operation Arrests Bank Director Suspected of Stealing from the Elderly," read the headline. The footage showed Richard Thompson Wells being led away in handcuffs while investigators carried out boxes of bank documents. "We did it, Grandma," Tyler said, hugging Dorothy. "You did it, my grandson. You saved so many people." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. In the weeks that followed, Tyler's story spread throughout the city. He became something of a local hero, the boy who had taken down a corrupt banker. But fame wasn't what mattered most to Tyler. What truly made him happy was seeing the results of his courage. Mrs. Jenkins got back the $2,400 that had been stolen from her account. With the money, she was able to renovate her pastry stand and grow her business. Mr. Wilson received $1,800 back. He used it to buy new tools and expand his shoe repair shop. Mrs. Thompson recovered $3,600. She opened a small embroidery school in her backyard and began teaching neighborhood youth. In total, over $200,000 was returned to the affected customers. Tyler's grandmother, Dorothy, got back the $500 that had been stolen, plus interest. With the money, he was able to pay for a private physical therapy plan and had a much faster recovery. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. 3 months after Richard's arrest, Tyler was at home studying when someone knocked on the door. It was a man in a suit he didn't recognize. "Are you Tyler Williams?" "Yes, sir." "My name is Brian Harrison. I'm a lawyer representing the bank's new administrative board." Tyler grew nervous. Was he in some kind of trouble? "May I come in? I'd like to speak with you and your grandmother." Dorothy had been discharged from the hospital a week earlier and was at home doing her physical therapy exercises. "What do you want with us?" she asked suspiciously. "I've come with a proposal. The bank's board would like to offer Tyler a full scholarship from 5th grade through college." Tyler and Dorothy exchanged surprised glances. "Why?" Tyler asked. "Because you showed integrity and courage we rarely see. The bank wants to make amends for the harm caused by Richard Thompson Wells and recognize the value of people like you." "But I don't want anyone's charity," Tyler said proudly. Brian smiled. "It's not charity, Tyler, it's recognition. You saved the bank from a much bigger scandal. If Richard had continued his scheme, the institution could have gone bankrupt." "How so?" We discovered he was planning to expand the scam to target other types of clients. In a few years, he could have stolen millions. You stopped that." Dorothy held her grandson's hand. "Tyler, I think you should accept. Education is the one thing no one can take from you." Tyler thought for a moment. "I'll accept, but on one condition." "What is it?" "I want the scholarship extended to other underprivileged kids in the area, not just me." Brian was impressed by the boy's maturity. "I'll take your proposal to the board. I'm sure they'll agree." A week later, Brian returned with good news. The bank would create a scholarship program for 50 underprivileged children in the area, in addition to Tyler's full scholarship. But the surprises weren't over yet. The following month, Tyler received a visit from Dr. Sarah. "Tyler, I have news for you, good or bad?" "Very good. You've been selected for an honorable mention from the Bar Association. It's recognition for your work in defending justice." Tyler wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but from Dr. Sarah's expression it seemed important. "And there's more," she continued. "A journalist wants to write a book about your story. The royalties would be yours." "A book about me?" "Yes, your story could inspire other kids to have the courage to do what's right." Tyler looked at his grandmother, who was smiling proudly. "What do you think, Grandma?" "I think it could be good, my boy, but only if you want it," Tyler thought. Maybe his story really could help others. "Okay, but I want part of the book's earnings to go toward improving the hospital where Grandma was treated." Dr. Sarah nodded, impressed. "Tyler, you never cease to amaze me." 6 months after it all began, Tyler was in a completely different situation. He was attending a private school on a full scholarship, his grandmother had fully recovered, and they had moved into a small but comfortable home. But what made Tyler proudest was knowing his courage had made a difference in so many lives. Mrs. Jenkins now had the best pastry stand at the market. Mr. Wilson had hired an assistant, and his business was thriving. Mrs. Thompson had become the area's go-to expert for embroidery. And most importantly, the elderly in town were now more aware of their rights and knew how to protect themselves from scams. The bank, under new management, created a special assistance program for the elderly, with trained staff to explain all banking transactions in simple terms. Richard Thompson Wells was sentenced to 8 years in prison and had to repay all the stolen money, plus interest and fines. His accomplice received 5 years. During the trial, Tyler was called to testify. When the judge asked why he had taken such a risk to protect people he barely knew, Tyler replied, "My grandmother always taught me that when you see something wrong happening and do nothing, you become an accomplice to injustice. I didn't want to be an accomplice." The answer was published in newspapers across the state, and Tyler became a national example of youth citizenship. But despite all the fame, Tyler remained the same simple boy as before. He still visited his old neighbors, still helped his grandmother with household chores, and still dreamed of becoming a lawyer to help even more people. The difference was that now he had the tools to make those dreams come true. A year later, Tyler was in his new school when his English teacher asked the class, "Who can give me an example of courage?" Several students raised their hands, but one girl said, "Courage is when you do what's right, even when you're scared." Tyler smiled. That definition was perfect. That afternoon, when he got home, he found his grandmother reading the book that had been written about his story. The title was The Boy Who Spoke Up. "How's the book, Grandma?" "Very good, my grandson. But the best part isn't written here." "Which part?" "The part that comes next. Everything you're still going to achieve in life." Tyler hugged his grandmother. She was right. The story he had lived was just the beginning. There was so much more ahead, and he was ready for it all. 2 years later, Tyler was in his junior year of high school when he received an unexpected call. It was Mrs. Margaret, the bank receptionist. "Tyler, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." "What happened, Mrs. Margaret?" "We discovered something you need to know. Can you come to the bank?" Tyler went immediately, accompanied by his grandmother. Mrs. Margaret greeted them at the reception with a serious expression. "Tyler, we were organizing old files in the basement when we found a box hidden behind a false wall." "What kind of box?" "A box with very old documents about you and your family." Tyler and Dorothy exchanged confused glances. Mrs. Margaret led them to a private room and placed a stack of yellowed papers on the table. "Tyler, did you know your grandfather?" "No, Mrs. Margaret. He passed away before I was born." "Was your grandfather's name George Williams?" "Yes," Dorothy replied. "He was my husband." Mrs. Margaret took a document from the top of the pile. "George Williams was one of the founders of this bank 40 years ago." Dorothy turned pale. "What do you mean?" "He was a minority shareholder with 5% of the shares. When he passed, Richard forged documents to take control of those shares." Tyler couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You mean my family owned part of the bank?" "You do, Tyler. You still do. The shares never legally stopped being yours. Richard just hid the documents." Dorothy began to cry. "George always said he'd left something for our family, but I never understood what it was. He talked about important papers kept in a safe place. The papers were here, behind the false wall in the basement. Richard probably hid them after George's death." Tyler tried to process the information. "So now, what does this mean?" Mrs. Margaret smiled. "It means you're officially a shareholder of this bank. With 5% of the shares, you have the right to participate in major decisions and receive dividends." "How much money does this represent?" "Well, considering the bank's current value, your shares are worth approximately $2 million. The room fell completely silent. Tyler and Dorothy were speechless. "$2 million? Tyler finally managed to ask. "Yes, and there's more. You're entitled to all the dividends that should have been paid over the last 12 years. That adds another $500,000. Dorothy had to sit down. The discovery was too shocking. "But why are you telling us this?" Tyler asked. "You could have hidden it again." "Tyler, after everything you've done for us and for so many people, it would be impossible to keep this from you. You deserve to know the truth." "And there's something even better," said a voice behind them. Tyler turned and saw Mr. Harrison, the lawyer who had offered him the scholarship. "Mr. Harrison, what are you doing here?" "I came to make you an offer, Tyler. The bank's board wants to invite you to join as a director. But I'm only 15. "Exactly why? We want you to learn the business early. You'd study business and economics on a full scholarship while also gaining hands-on experience running a bank." Tyler looked at his grandmother, who was smiling through her tears. "What do you think, Grandma?" "I think your grandfather would be so proud. He always dreamed that one day our family could help other families thrive." Tyler thought for a moment. "I accept, but with a few conditions." "Name them." "First, I want to create a microcredit program for small business owners in my old neighborhood. Second, I want the bank to always have special services for seniors. Third, I want part of the profits to go to social programs." Mr. Harrison smiled. "All conditions accepted. Welcome to the bank, Doctor." "Tyler." That night, Tyler and Dorothy ate dinner at home, still trying to process everything. "Grandma, can you believe we went from poor to millionaires in 2 years?" "Tyler, you've been rich since you were little." "How so?" "Character, my grandson. Honesty, courage, compassion. No one can buy that. The money is just a consequence." Tyler nodded. His grandmother always knew what to say. "So now, Grandma, what do we do with all this change?" "Now we keep being who we've always been, people who care about others. The only difference is we have more tools to help." 5 years later, Tyler graduated with a degree in business and economics from the best university in the state. During college, he had completely transformed the bank. The microcredit program he created had helped over 1,000 small business owners achieve their dreams. Mrs. Jenkins now owned a chain of 5 stores. Mr. Wilson had opened a large auto shop employing 10 people. Mrs. Thompson founded a sewing cooperative that exported products abroad. The senior care program became a national model copied by other financial institutions. And the bank, once known for Richard Thompson Wells scandals, was now recognized as the most ethical and socially responsible in the region. At his graduation, Tyler gave a speech that moved the entire audience. "7 years ago, I was just a poor boy selling mint candies on the street. Today, I stand here as a graduate, a bank director, living a life I never imagined. But the most important thing I've learned isn't finance or economics. It's that each of us has the power to make a difference in others' lives. It doesn't matter if you're a child or an adult, rich or poor, famous or unknown. If you see injustice and choose to act, you can change the world. My world changed when I decided not to stay silent, and it will keep changing as long as I keep believing it's possible to build a fairer society for everyone. When Tyler finished speaking, the entire audience stood up to applaud. In the front rows were Dorothy, Mrs. Margaret, Dr. Sarah, and dozens of people whose lives had been touched by that boy's courage. After graduation, Tyler was invited to give talks at schools across the country. His story became teaching material in ethics and citizenship courses, but what made Tyler proudest was seeing how his actions had inspired other children and young people to also speak up when they witnessed injustice. A 10-year-old girl in Chicago reported a scheme selling spoiled school lunches. A teenager in Colorado discovered that his town's mayor was embezzling healthcare funds. A young woman in Miami created a project to combat bullying in her school. They all credited Tyler as their inspiration. At one of these talks, a child raised their hand and asked, "Mr. Tyler, weren't you scared when you decided to stand up to the bank robber?" Tyler smiled. "I was terrified, but I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is doing what's right even when you're afraid." "And how did you know it was the right thing to do?" "My grandmother always taught me a simple rule. Before you do anything, ask yourself if you'd want it done to someone you love. If the answer is no, then don't do it." Years later, when Tyler was 30 and had become one of the most respected bankers in the country, he received a call that would change his life once again. "Tyler, it's Dr. Sarah." "Dr. Sarah, it's so good to hear from you. How are you?" "I'm well, dear, but I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "Your grandmother is in the hospital." Tyler felt the world spin. "What happened? Is it serious?" "She had a minor heart issue. Nothing too severe, but the doctors want to run some tests. She's asking for you." Tyler cancelled all his commitments and rushed to City Memorial Hospital. He found Dorothy in a cardiology bed, looking frailer than he'd like, but alert and smiling. "Grandma, how are you feeling?" "I'm fine, my boy. Just a little scare." Tyler held his grandmother's hand. She was 85 now, but still the wisest woman he knew. "Tyler, I need to tell you something." "Anything, Grandma. I'm so proud of the man you've become. So very proud." "Grandma, don't talk like that. You'll get better, and we'll have many more years together." "Of course we will, my boy, but I still want you to know you're the best thing that ever happened to me." Tyler felt tears welling in his eyes. "You're the best thing in my life too, Grandma. If it weren't for you, I'd never have learned the difference between right and wrong." "Tyler, I want to ask you something." "Anything. Always keep doing good. No matter how much you grow or how much money you have, never forget where you came from and never stop helping those in need." "I promise, Grandma." Dorothy squeezed her grandson's hand. "And when it's your turn to teach these things to your children, tell them the story of the boy who spoke up." Tyler smiled through his tears. "I will, Grandma. And I'll also tell them about the grandmother who taught that boy to be brave." 3 days later, Dorothy was discharged from the hospital, fully recovered. The doctors said that with proper care she could live many more years. On the way home, she said to Tyler, "You know something, my boy?" "What, Grandma?" "I've already lived much longer than I expected. I've watched you grow up, become a good and successful man. I've seen you help hundreds of people. I couldn't ask for anything more from life." "Grandma, you'll see so much more. You'll see me get married. You'll meet your great-grandchildren. I really want to see all that, Tyler. But if there isn't time, I want you to know I already feel completely fulfilled." Tyler stopped the car and hugged his grandmother. "Grandma, you gave me everything in life: love, education, values, courage. Now it's my turn to take care of you. You've always taken care of me, my grandson, since you were just a little boy. And I'll keep taking care of you forever." 2 years later, Tyler married Emily, a lawyer he met during one of his lectures on business ethics. Emily also came from a humble family and shared the same values as Tyler. The wedding was simple, held in the church hall of the neighborhood where Tyler had grown up. Dorothy, now 87, danced the waltz with her grandson, moving all the guests to tears. "Now my life is truly complete," she said during the celebration. A year after the wedding, Tyler and Emily's first child was born, a boy they named George, in honor of the grandfather Tyler had never met. When Dorothy held her great-grandson for the first time, she said, "This boy will change the world just like his father did." "How can you be so sure?" Tyler asked, smiling. "Because he has the same eyes you had when you were little, eyes that refuse to accept injustice." Tyler looked at his son and made a silent promise. He would be for George everything Dorothy had been for him. The years passed quickly. Tyler continued running the bank with the same ethical principles he had learned from his grandmother. The bank expanded to other cities, always maintaining its focus on social responsibility. George grew up hearing stories about his father and great-grandmother. By age 5, he already knew by heart the story of the boy who uncovered the corrupt banker. "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to help people like you did," he said one day. "You can help in whatever way you choose, son. What matters is always doing good." "But what if I'm scared?" Tyler smiled, remembering the conversation he'd had with Dorothy many years before. "If you're scared, remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is doing what's right, even when you're afraid." George nodded, serious as an adult. "What if people don't believe me because I'm a kid? Then you keep doing the right thing anyway. Eventually, they'll believe you." When George turned 10, Tyler decided it was time for him to learn the full family story. He took the boy to visit the places where it all began. First, they went to the old bank building, now a cultural center. Tyler showed his son the basement where he had discovered the documents. "This is where it all started, George. In this dark, damp room." "Daddy, weren't you scared to come down here alone?" "I was. But I thought about great-grandma Dorothy in the hospital, and that gave me courage." Next, they visited Mrs. Jenkins, who now owned a chain of restaurants. She greeted Tyler and George with tears in her eyes. "If it weren't for your father, my dear, I'd still be selling pastries from a rickety stall," and she told George. "Mrs. Jenkins, you earned all this through your own hard work," Tyler corrected. "I just helped you reclaim what was rightfully yours." "Don't be modest, Tyler. You saved my life and the lives of many others." They also visited Mr. Wilson, who now owned the largest shoe repair shop in the area, and Mrs. Thompson, whose embroidery cooperative employed over 100 women. Each of them told George how Tyler had changed their lives. At the end of the day, father and son returned home, where Dorothy, now 92, was waiting for them with dinner. "How was your trip?" she asked. "It was amazing, Grandma Dorothy." "Now I understand why everyone says my dad is a hero," George replied. "Your father isn't a hero, my dear," Dorothy said, sitting George on her lap. "Your father is just a good person who decided to do the right thing, and you can be like that too. I want to be, Grandma. I want to help people like he did. Then start helping today. Help a classmate at school. Be kind to those in need. Don't let anyone be mistreated in front of you." "I can do that, Grandma." Tyler watched the scene with a heart full of love. Seeing his grandmother teaching his son the same values she had taught him was the most beautiful gift life could give. That night, after George went to sleep, Tyler and Dorothy stayed talking in the living room. "Grandma, do you think I became the man you wanted me to be?" "Tyler, you became far more than I ever dreamed. Not only did you grow into a good and successful man, but you also inspired thousands of others to be better. Everything I am, I owe to you. No, my grandson, I only planted the seed. You were the one who chose to water it and make it grow." Tyler kissed his grandmother's forehead. "Grandma, thank you for everything. For teaching me the difference between right and wrong. For giving me courage when I needed it. For being my role model. And thank you, Tyler, for giving me the pride of seeing my grandson become someone who makes the world better." 2 years later, when Tyler was celebrating 15 years since exposing Richard Thompson Wells's scheme, he received a call he never expected. "Tyler, it's Richard Thompson." Tyler froze. The former banker had served his sentence and had been free for a few years, but they had never spoken. "What do you want?" Tyler asked cautiously. "I'd like to meet you. I have something important to say." Tyler hesitated, But curiosity won. Where? The square in front of the bank, where it all began. The next day, Tyler went to meet him. He found Richard sitting on a bench in the square. The man looked very different, thinner, graying hair, a humble appearance. "Tyler, thank you for coming. What do you want with me?" Richard took a deep breath. "I want to ask for your forgiveness." Tyler hadn't expected that. Forgiveness? Yes. Forgiveness for everything I did, for trying to humiliate you, for stealing from your family and so many others, for being such a terrible person. Tyler stayed silent, processing the words. "In prison, I had a lot of time to think," Richard continued, "and I realized that you, a 12-year-old boy, were infinitely a better person than I ever was. That shamed me deeply. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know that your actions changed my life too, not just the lives of the people I hurt, but my own life." Richard picked up a folder beside him. "Over these years, I got a job at a small accounting firm. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. And I managed to save some money." He handed the folder to Tyler. "What is this?" "It's the deed to a small house I bought. I want to donate it to the charity that cares for abandoned children, as a way to try and make up for some of the harm I caused." Tyler opened the folder and saw the documents were indeed in the name of a charity. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I learned from you that it's never too late to change, that we can always choose to do good no matter our past mistakes." Tyler looked at the man who had once tried to humiliate him. "Richard, I accept your apology, and I admire your courage to try and make things right. Thank you, Tyler. That means a lot to me." The two men stood up. Richard extended his hand to Tyler. "God bless you, Tyler. You were the angel I needed to find the right path." Tyler shook his former enemy's hand. "We all deserve a second chance, Richard. I hope you find the peace you're looking for." When he got home that night, Tyler told Dorothy and Emily everything. "What do you think? Did I do the right thing by forgiving him?" Dorothy smiled. "Tyler, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means freeing our hearts from hatred. You did exactly the right thing. And besides," Emily added, "your example might have truly changed his life. That's very powerful." "Daddy, does that mean bad people can become good people?" George asked. "It means everyone can choose to change for the better, son. They just have to truly want it." 5 years later, Tyler was opening the 5th branch of his bank when he received news that moved him deeply. Richard Thompson Wells had passed away from natural causes, but had left a will donating all his assets to charity. Along with the will was a letter addressed to Tyler. "Tyler, when you forgave me that afternoon in the square, you gave me the most precious gift one person can give another, the chance to start over. I spent my last years trying to do some good in the world, inspired by the example you set when you were just a brave little boy. I hope God forgives me for my mistakes, just as you forgave me. Thank you for teaching me it's never too late to change. Richard Thompson Wells." Tyler cried as he read the letter. Life had strange and beautiful cycles. That evening, during family dinner, he shared the news. "It's amazing how one small act can change so many lives," Emily remarked. "It wasn't small," Dorothy corrected. "It was enormous." Tyler had the courage to do what was right when most people would have stayed silent. "Grandma Dorothy, when I grow up, will I have that kind of courage too?" George asked. "You already do, my dear. Just yesterday, you stood up for that new boy at school who was being picked on. That's courage." Tyler smiled. The cycle was repeating itself. George was learning the same values he had been taught. The following year, when Dorothy turned 96, the family threw a big celebration. People came from all over the country. Clients the bank had helped, former employees, children who had benefited from social programs. During the party, Tyler gave an emotional speech. "This woman we're honoring today isn't just my grandmother. She's the reason for everything I am and everything I've been able to accomplish. She's the one who taught me that the greatest wealth in the world is having character. She's the one who gave me the courage to do what was right, even when it was hard. If thousands of people have had their lives improved in some way today, it's because this extraordinary woman knew how to raise a child with love and the right values." Everyone stood to applaud Dorothy, who sat radiant in her wheelchair, surrounded by 4 generations of her family. "Now, I want you all to do me a favor," Tyler continued. "Everyone here today, go home and teach your children the same thing my grandmother taught me. That we can't stay silent when we see injustice happening. That we all have the power to make a difference. And that no matter our age, our social status, or our circumstances, we can always choose to do good." When the party ended and everyone had left, Tyler stayed alone with Dorothy in the living room. "Grandma, are you happy?" "Happier than I ever could have imagined, my grandson." "What makes you happiest?" "Seeing that everything I tried to teach you won't die with me. It'll pass to George, then to his children, and so on." "It always will, Grandma. Your lessons are eternal." Dorothy held her grandson's hand. "Tyler, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Grandma." "If you could go back in time and change anything in our story, what would you change?" Tyler thought for a moment. "I'd change just one thing, Grandma." "What?" "I wish my parents were alive to meet the incredible woman who raised me and to see the man I've become." Dorothy smiled through her tears. "They know, my grandson. I'm sure they know and are proud." "And you, Grandma? If you could change anything?" "Nothing, Tyler. Absolutely nothing. Our story was perfect just the way it happened." 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, Dorothy didn't wake up. She was found in her bed, with an expression of peace on her face, as if she had fallen asleep, smiling. The wake was one of the largest the town had ever seen. People from all over came to say goodbye to the woman who had raised the man who changed so many lives. During the funeral, Tyler insisted on carrying the casket himself. It was his final way of caring for the woman who had cared for him his entire life. At the cemetery, he gave a final speech. "Dorothy Williams was much more than a grandmother to me. She was a mother, a teacher, a friend, an advisor, and an example. She taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by what they have, but by what they do for others. She left in peace because she knew her lessons would live on through me, my son, and all the people touched by our story. Grandma, thank you for everything. You can rest easy. I'll keep doing good for the rest of my life, just as you taught me." After the funeral, Tyler took George home, and the two talked in the boys' room. "Dad, I'm going to miss Grandma Dorothy." "Me too, son. So much." "Did she go to heaven?" "Yes, she did, and from there she'll keep watching over us." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course, George." "Are you going to keep telling the story of the boy who spoke up?" Tyler smiled. "I'll always tell it, my son. And one day you'll tell it to your children too. And will they tell it to their kids?" "Yes, because stories of courage and kindness should never be forgotten." George snuggled close to his father. "Dad, I want to be brave like you were." "You already are brave, George, and you'll be even braver, because you carry Grandma Dorothy's lessons inside you." Years passed. George grew up and became a doctor, specializing in serving underprivileged communities. He married and had 3 children, to whom he faithfully told the story of his courageous grandfather and wise great-grandmother. Tyler continued running the bank until he was 60, when he retired to dedicate himself fully to social projects. He founded an organization that helped young entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. At 70, Tyler decided to write his memoirs. The book, titled Lessons from a Wise Grandmother, became a national bestseller. On the last page, he wrote, "If this story teaches readers just one thing, let it be this. Each of us has the power to change the world. We don't need to be rich, famous, or powerful. We just need the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard. Injustice only wins when good people stay silent. Don't stay silent. Be the voice for those who have none. Be the courage for those who are afraid. Be the hope for those who've lost faith. And always remember, no matter how small you feel, you can be a giant when you do good." On the day of the book's release, Tyler was invited for a television interview. The host asked a question that moved him deeply. "Tyler, after everything you've lived through, what's the greatest lesson you'd like to pass on to future generations?" Tyler thought of his grandmother, the people he'd helped, the son he'd raised, the grandchildren still growing up. "The greatest lesson is that love always defeats hate, truth always defeats lies, and courage always defeats fear. It may take time, it may be hard, but it always wins. And each of us has the responsibility to do our part to make this happen. When Tyler left the TV studio that night, he looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Grandma, for everything." And he was certain that somewhere, Dorothy was smiling proudly. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe Tyler made the right decisions in standing up to such a powerful man? Which of Grandma Dorothy's lessons touched your heart the most? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. We love reading every one of your messages. And if this story moved your soul as we hoped, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other narratives that will inspire and uplift you.